Welcome everybody, I'm a music nerd here. You see the title of this video. We're going to be doing another episode of Beginner's Guide focusing on alternative hip-hop and experimental hip-hop from the 2010s. But I am not doing this alone this time. I got my friend FancyMemo along with me. He also does music reviews and album reactions and song reactions. So if you want to go check out his channel, I'm going to leave the link down below. And we also did a collab video on his channel. We each ranked our top 10 albums of the decade. So after checking out this video, check out that video. That's also going to be linked in the description below. For somebody who isn't too aware of experimental hip-hop, alternative hip-hop, wants to get into the genre but doesn't know where to start, me and Memo are going to recommend 5 albums each for you to check out. But before we get started, of course, hit the like button down below. If you like the content that's on this channel, please subscribe. Hit that subscribe button down below. Let's not delay any longer. I'm going to send it to my man FancyMemo, and let's get this thing started.
Hello everybody, my name is Memo. I have a channel called FancyMemo. If you want to check it out, please do so. The first album I will be talking about is Yeezus by Kanye West. If you know me, you know that I am a huge Kanye fan. I stan Kanye, but in my opinion, Yeezus isn't one of his best projects. I like it, it's just not one of his best. But the reason why I wanted to talk about this album is because I feel like this is a very important album for the alternative hip-hop scene. And here's why. Kanye West, who was already such a big name, especially after releasing My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, decided to do one of the weirdest off-kilter albums he has ever done and bring that into the mainstream. Now, he did not start this new wave of industrial experimental hip-hop, but he helped popularize it. He brought this aggressive, weird music into the mainstream. Like, I remember Black Skinhead was playing everywhere when this was released. He helped popularize this type of music. And although it wasn't received very well at first, it did grow on a lot of people, and it did have a huge impact because it influenced a lot of people too. Seeing one of the biggest rap stars ever dropping a very experimental hip-hop album influenced a lot of other artists to do so as well, making it okay for other artists to experiment with their sound, do something different, and that is fantastic. That's why I feel like this album is very important, because it not only took this abrasive sound to the mainstream, it helped popularize the sound, bringing alternative hip-hop into the radio, and influence other artists to follow a same path. And even though this isn't my favorite Kanye album, there are a lot of bangers in this track list. I don't know why, but I just love how On Sight abuses my ears. Black Skinhead is a classic. New Slaves has one of the best Kanye verses ever, and he would agree. I love the production on Blood on the Leaves, and I especially love the sample they used. But my favorite track off of this album is by far the closing track, Bound 2. It is one of my favorite love songs, and it's definitely one of the weirdest love songs, not only in Kanye's discography, but in hip-hop in general. There's not a lot of love songs that sounds like this. Great album, very important for alternative hip-hop.
The first album I'm going to talk about is Danny Brown's Atrocity Exhibition. Man, oh man, this album is a trip. It's one of my personal favorite albums of all time. I was aware of him when he did Triple X and Old, but on this album, he really takes it up 10 more notches. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, you know how that movie was kind of like an acid trip, and you know, just a portrait of a man just going down a rabbit hole of drugs, despair, and destruction. This is what this sounds like put to music. Songs such as And When It Rained, White Lines, From the Ground Up. These are songs that are showing a man who is used to this lifestyle of drugs and basically giving us a window of his destructive life, whether we like it or not. Just banger after banger after banger on this song. It's really just a hellish experience. Also, the album title, Atrocity Exhibition, is a reference to a Joy Division song back in the 80s called Atrocity Exhibition. And Danny Brown also name-checked some lyrics that were on some Joy Division songs. So I think it's pretty cool that he pays tribute to another depressing but influential artist. If you're into music like that, definitely check out this album. It represents the best that experimental hip-hop has to offer.
The next album I'm going to talk about is Run the Jewels 2 by Run the Jewels. Run the Jewels is one of the best rap duos in hip-hop ever. Like, they are up there with Outkast in my opinion. The combination of Killer Mike's awesome voice and his rapping ability and his crazy flows, matched with LP's impressive rapping and his GOAT production, it's a match made in heaven. They are fantastic. And just like their rapping, the production is very aggressive. It's hardcore, but it has this futuristic twist that LP is known for. Run the Jewels 4 is my favorite Run the Jewels album, but Run the Jewels 2 is a close second. This album has so much personality. Again, it's aggressive, it sounds futuristic, and a lot of the songs off of this album just stands out. Like Oh My Darling, Don't Cry. That's one of the best examples of aggressive, futuristic sounding hardcore hip-hop. Close Your Eyes is a perfect workout track. If you want to add that to your workout playlist, please do. It'll get you motivated to lift some weights. Impress the ladies. Early is a fantastic track. It's really beautiful. It's political, and I love the storytelling element in this track. It's really well done. And there's a bunch of other tracks that I can talk about, like Jeopardy, All My Life, Angel Duster, but I don't want to spoil the whole album for you guys. So if you haven't listened to Run the Jewels 2 for some reason, go check it out. It's a great alternative hip-hop album.
Earl Sweatshirt, Some Rap Songs. This album was released during a turbulent time in Earl's life. His father had just passed away. He had to cancel his European tour. He lost Mac Miller, who was one of his closest friends and longtime collaborators, delaying the album even more. I was kind of surprised that he even ended up releasing the album, given that all that happened with his life. But he pushed it back to late 2018. Some Rap Songs is only 23 minutes. It is emotionally dense, claustrophobic, intense, ranging through all these different emotions from nostalgia to happiness to darkness, depression, despair. It's all in here. This is definitely the darkest and most raw that Earl has ever been. I even found myself thinking, man, is Earl okay? Dude, like, I want to give you like the biggest hug right now. It's just a really weird and fascinating record, but Earl lyricism is top notch as always. For somebody who struggles with anxiety and depression, he really captured that on record. Earl Sweatshirt is basically just saying, yeah, I'm just messed up and I don't know what to do. It's definitely an acquired taste. If you love music like that, that's just very depressing, Earl really does a good job of displaying that. It's a unique listening experience.
The next album I'm going to talk about is Floss by Injury Reserve. This is technically a mixtape, but who cares? First of all, rest in peace Groggs, man. He just passed away. He's one of the 3 members of Injury Reserve. Parker does the production, and both Richie and Groggs does the rapping. It makes me sad just thinking about it, especially since this group had a lot of potential, and they already showed how great they are, but I felt like they could do even better. Honestly, I think they were capable of like just changing the underground scene in general. They have a great discography. I decided to talk about Floss because it's my favorite project from them, and it showcases a lot of the potential they had, and it features a lot of qualities that I feel like the underground might start to evolve to. Just like a lot of other alternative hip-hop albums, a lot of experimental hip-hop albums, this is a very aggressive sounding album. They have very angry bangers. They have Oh Shit, which is a great way to start off the album. It just pumps you up. Eeny Meeny Miny Mo is a silly name, but that track goes hard. They just go in on that track. And yes, they have their aggressive cuts, but what makes them so unique is that almost every track off of this album has a catchy hook. Like, there's a catchy element to everything. It could be as simple as Eeny Meeny Miny Mo, yeah, 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 get your tiger by his toe, yeah, yeah, yeah. And it just gets stuck in your head. It makes this aggressive and weird music kind of appealing. And Richie usually does the hooks, and he is fantastic at it. Other tracks with catchy hooks are What's Goody, S on Your Chest. They make experimental music sound appealing, and I feel like if you want to get into alternative hip-hop, they are a good group to check out because it sounds pretty accessible. And not only are they aggressive and catchy, but they have bars. They have substantive bars. One of my favorite tracks is the closing track, Look Mama, I Did It. It's basically them talking about how they finally have found success and how grateful they are for being able to have a fan base. So this combination of great lyricism, aggressive experimental music, and catchy hooks, I feel like this combination will start to become more popular in the underground. And maybe in the mainstream, who knows?
Now, Vince Staples, especially in the West Coast hip-hop scene, had always kind of been the odd man out compared to guys like YG and Schoolboy Q, Nipsey Hussle, rest in peace. His production sound was different than typical West Coast hip-hop. Of course, he is heavily influenced by guys like Snoop Dogg in the 90s, even though he says he doesn't listen to it. Vince, come on, stop capping. I know you listen to that shit. You know, he starts out with, in his career, Summertime '06, and then Prima Donna, which I enjoyed, but nothing could have prepared me for Big Fish Theory, which to me is his breakthrough album. He does a very interesting thing here. He marries West Coast G-Funk with European electronic club music. Like, huh? Like, what? It's a huge risk that Vince takes, and he pulls it off somehow. What's fascinating about this record is that Vince never loses his potent lyricism and his wittiness. You know, even though the sound makes you want to dance, Vince never loses sight that I have something to say here. You know, there's a lot of good songs here. Crabs in a Bucket, Rain Come Down. The feature list is expansive. He's working with electronic producers such as Sophie and Flume, but he's also working with A$AP Rocky, Kendrick Lamar, who gives a fire verse on Yeah Right, easily the best feature on the album. Juicy J, who's featured on Big Fish, probably one of the more accessible songs in the album. It's kind of like a big bass, funky record, and Juicy J just sings the hook, and it's perfect. Songs like Bag Back shows Vince kind of like boasting like he's one of the top rappers, getting his shit off. Vince does his own version of a party song called Party People, and he's basically just saying, I'm at a party, but it sucks. You know, he's like, all I see is death and destruction. Why do I care about dancing? The hooks on this album are very strange, abnormal, but they're also catchy as hell. Same thing. Yeah, Big Fish Theory showed that Vince is one of the more forward-thinking voices in hip-hop. He doesn't get a lot of attention. If you're looking to get into alternative hip-hop, definitely check out this album.
The next album, or albums in this case, is the Saturation series from Brockhampton, the best boy band since One Direction. Nobody will run a year like Brockhampton did in 2017. In that year alone, they dropped 3 amazing albums, the Saturation series, Saturation 1, 2, and 3, and they shocked the world not only because they put out a big quantity of albums. Every album had quality songs. It's the perfect combination of quantity and quality, and it's filled with bangers. Just listen to the first 3 tracks of the first Saturation and you'll be hooked. Heat is a literal heat. Gold is amazing. Star is a very creative track. And fun fact, in the song Gold, Don McClendon has this bar that goes like this: swan dive on the 405, land at the bottom of El Toro High. Yeah, El Toro High is my high school. That's where I went to high school. I'm kind of a big deal since I went there. And yes, even though they can have great upbeat music like Boogie, that's a fun track, they can get very introspective as well, very serious. In the song Fight, which is from Saturation 2, they talk a lot about racism. Amir Van gave a great verse on that. But I feel like the song that is the best example of these guys being vulnerable is Junkie, because almost everybody has a very touching verse. They just talk about their struggles, and they have a bunch of different struggles since of course they're all from different backgrounds. But my favorite verse from that song has to go to Kevin Abstract. The way he starts off that song, very menacing and cold-blooded, and talking about his life growing up and being gay, and talking about how there's not a lot of gay rappers out there, and he knows being a gay rapper is a bit taboo in this community for some reason, but he doesn't care because he is who he is and he's proud of it. It's definitely one of my favorite Brockhampton songs. What they are able to do is amazing, especially since they write their own lyrics, they rap, but the Brockhampton group has their own producers, so they produce everything themselves. Not necessarily the rappers, but they have specific producers in the Brockhampton group. Their beats are impressive. It's very good. Just listen to Sister Nation. If you listen to that song and you don't think that's a great song just on production alone, then get out! It's a fantastic song. It's from Saturation 3 if you want to check that out. This is a talented boy band. Yes, boy band, not a rap group, boy band. And what they're doing for alternative hip-hop is impressive. I'm a big fan of theirs, and I hope they continue making great music like this.
Schoolboy Q's Blank Face LP. This album kind of took what Oxymoron did and just made it more cinematic and more psychedelic. It's more closer to me in psychedelic soul and psychedelic funk than it is to hip-hop. Actually, it makes me feel in a blaxploitation movie, you know, like a Dolomite or something like that. God, I sound like a boomer right now. The kids don't know who Dolomite is, music nerd. Stop. That part, which features Kanye West, you know, Kanye's verse is very goofy and typical Kanye. Lord Have Mercy, Groovy Tony, which when it came out before the album, I was excited about. But did they have to have Jadakiss bring more fire into the gasoline? Like, did they? Oh my God. Schoolboy Q, Jadakiss on the same song, just epic. But not only that, it switches into Eddie Kane, which is this 3-minute beat switch up, psychedelic mind trip that just takes you on a journey. It's amazing. Vince Staples gives a great guest feature on this, on Ride Out. Kendrick Lamar features on By Any Means. Anderson .Paak is on this album. Miguel is on this album. And then the album closes out with Tuki Knows Too, which is just, it's the hardest song on the album. Schoolboy Q is saying that, hey, what I do in this life, this gang stuff, I'm gonna die for this. Blank Face LP is dense. The production on it is immaculate. It's amazing. Blank Face LP, a great experimental hip-hop album. Check it out.
The last album I'm going to be talking about is one of my favorites, Veteran by JPEG Mafia. I'm calling it now. Peggy is the future. I believe that he will be changing the underground really soon. His material is boundary pushing, and this album is a great example of how unique Peggy is, and I believe a lot of underground artists will take this album as a blueprint because the way Peggy plays with sound is incredible. Like in this track, I'm not going to say it out loud because I do not want to get cancelled. JPEG Mafia sampled ODB with the he sampled that yell, and that track goes hard. Once the drums come in, it goes even harder. It's just pure heat. In Thug Tears, Peggy does this weird clicking sound. It sounds like pens clicking, kind of like ASMR-ish. Although it was off-putting at first to me, I grew to love it a lot. And let's not fail to mention that he does this all on his own. He writes his lyrics, raps of course, but he also produces and mixes his albums, which not a lot of artists do that. No artists usually mix their own albums, but he does. And speaking of lyrics, ooh, this man is angry. He is angry and aggressive, and I love it. He's just after everybody. He's after conservatives, liberals, bloggers, Morrissey. He's just at your throat throughout the entire album. And look, this album is not for everybody. It does take a couple of listens to get used to. It definitely took me a little bit to enjoy this album. But once it clicks and you get hooked. You get hooked into this weird, chaotic, angry world that JPEG Mafia has given in this album. So that's it. That's the last album I'm going to talk about. Thank you to Music Nerd for having me on his channel. I really appreciate it.
Alright, the last album I'm going to be talking about is Tyler the Creator's Igor, aka DJ Khaled's favorite album. No, just kidding. Now, Igor to me is Tyler at his most vulnerable. Now, the album that he came out before was Flower Boy, which at that time was his most vulnerable. You know, him being introspective and talking about his life. If you're a long time Tyler the Creator fan, you know, he's always used to kind of being this wild, antisocial kind of a guy, but to see him talk about his feelings and being sincere about it was what made Flower Boy so special. But he takes that a notch further with Igor. Yes, he plays with kind of like a third person narrative. You know, the album is about him being caught in a love triangle with a guy and another girl, and how he feels left out. And this guy named Igor, which is associated with, you know, the Frankenstein myth, demons, monsters, being that person that's just left out. There's so many great songs here, starting out with Igor's theme, just immaculate way to start the album. Instrumental, pitches, sound effects, Tyler being at his most Kanye production wise. And then songs like Earthquake, which is Tyler singing and Playboy Cardi featuring on this song. I'm not a huge Playboy Cardi fan, but man, he is featured so well on this record. A Boy is a Gun, an amazing song in which talks about Tyler really feeling left out in this relationship and how he wants to be with this guy so bad that it hurts. Songs like Puppet and What's Good, going back to his old Tyler, saying like, I'm the shit, you know, you can't fuck with me. Listen, I would say if you're trying to get into Tyler the Creator, maybe Igor isn't the first album that I would start with. I would probably start with his older work. But if you're looking to get into alternative hip-hop in general, Igor is not a bad place to start. I think it's a masterful album. Some may even say it's better than Flower Boy. It's debatable. I'm going to wrap up this video. Huge thank you to FancyMemo. Like I said, go check out the video that we did on his channel and check out his channel in general. It's amazing. It's hilarious. He provides great entertainment. He also has some pretty slick dance moves. So, ladies, if you're out there, check it out. Also, leave a comment below. Tell me where are some alternative hip-hop albums that you would recommend from the 2010s. Subscribe if you love this content. More exciting content is on the way. I love each and every one of you. Anyways, until next time, peace.